I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who'd hide the biggest part of her life from the man she loved. But here I am, standing in the wreckage of my own lies, my wedding dress crumpled on the floor, my heart shattered, my future gone. My name's Lydia, I'm 29, and until a few weeks ago, I thought I'd finally found my happy ending. A new life with a man who adored me, a man who wanted to build a future with me, a man who didn't know the truth I'd buried deep inside me, a truth that came crashing down on the day that was supposed to be the best of my life. I live in Seattle, a city of gray skis and endless rain, where the Puget Sound glitters like a promise on rare sunny days, and the Space Needle stands tall against the horizon, a beacon of hope I clung to as I tried to rebuild my life. I shared a small but charming apartment in Capitol Hill with Adam, my fiancé, or at least, he was my fiancé until everything fell apart. The apartment was our sanctuary, a space filled with the kind of warmth I'd craved after years of chaos, a space that felt like a fresh start, a space that now feels like a hollow reminder of what I've lost. Adam was everything I thought I needed. A 32-year-old software engineer with a steady job at a tech startup downtown, a man whose life was as orderly as the code he wrote, whose smile lit up a room, whose love felt like a lifeline when I was drowning in my past. We'd been together for 2 years, engaged for 6 months, and every moment with him felt like a step toward the life I'd always wanted. A life where I could be someone new, someone whole, someone who wasn't defined by her mistakes, by her secrets, by the child she'd left behind every other weekend. Our apartment was a testament to our life together. White walls we'd painted ourselves last spring, the paint can still stacked in the closet, flecks of white on the hardwood floor where we'd been too eager, too in love to care about the mess. A gray linen sofa we'd bought on sale, its cushions lumpy from nights spent binge-watching sci-fi shows, Adam's arm around me, his laughter filling the space. A small kitchen with a chipped countertop, where Adam would make his famous blueberry pancakes on Sundays, the batter splattered on his navy apron, the air sweet with the scent of syrup and fresh coffee, a ritual that made me feel safe, loved, home. But there was always a shadow in that perfect picture, a secret I kept locked away, a secret that gnawed at me every time I looked into Adam's hazel eyes, every time he kissed me goodnight, every time he talked about our future. A future he didn't know the full truth about, a future I was building on a foundation of lies. I have a son, Noah, who just turned 4, a little boy with my curly brown hair and his father's green eyes, a boy I love more than anything in the world, a boy I'd hidden from Adam since the day we met. Noah lives with my sister, Claire, in a small house in Tacoma, a 45-minute drive from Seattle, a distance that felt like a buffer between my past and my present, a distance I thought would keep my secret safe, a distance that couldn't protect me when the truth finally came out. I'd met Adam at a coffee shop in Capitol Hill 2 years ago, a rainy Tuesday morning when I'd been running late for a meeting at the nonprofit where I work as a fundraiser. I'd spilled my latte all over the counter, the liquid pooling around my phone, my hands trembling as I tried to mop it up with napkins, my cheeks burning with embarrassment. Adam had been standing in line behind me, his laptop bag slung over his shoulder, his navy coat damp from the rain, his hazel eyes warm with amusement as he handed me a stack of napkins from the counter. "Looks like you need a hand," he'd said, his voice calm, his smile disarming, a smile that made my heart skip, that made me forget the chaos of my morning, that made me feel seen in a way I hadn't in years. We'd talked while waiting for our orders. About the rain, about the coffee shop's overpriced pastries, about the umbrella he'd forgotten at home, his laughter easy, his presence grounding, a presence that felt like a balm to the storm inside me. That chance meeting turned into a date the next week, a dinner at a cozy Italian restaurant downtown, where we'd shared a bottle of cheap Chianti and a plate of creamy fettuccine Alfredo, the candlelight flickering between us, his hand brushing mine as we reached for the bread basket at the same time. A touch that sent a jolt through me, a touch that felt like the beginning of something new, something real, something I hadn't thought I'd find after everything I'd been through. He walked me home that night, the rain still falling, his navy coat draped over my shoulders, his arm around me to shield me from the drizzle, his warmth seeping into me. His scent, something clean like pine and soap, lingering on my skin long after he'd kissed me goodnight on my doorstep. A soft, tentative kiss that left me breathless, that left me wanting more, that left me believing I could have a second chance, a new life, a new love. But even as I fell for him, even as our relationship deepened, even as he proposed 6 months ago on a quiet evening at Gasworks Park, the city skyline glowing in the background, the ring, a simple gold band with a tiny diamond, glinting in the moonlight as he slipped it onto my finger, his voice trembling with emotion as he asked me to be his wife, I couldn't bring myself to tell him about Noah. I wanted to, so many times, the words on the tip of my tongue, my heart pounding with the weight of the truth, my hands trembling as I tried to find the courage. But I couldn't do it, couldn't risk losing him, couldn't risk shattering the perfect life we were building, the perfect life I'd convinced myself I deserved after everything I'd been through. Noah's father, Ethan, had been my college boyfriend, a charming but reckless man who'd swept me off my feet at 22, a whirlwind romance that ended in heartbreak when I got pregnant at 24. Ethan had wanted nothing to do with fatherhood, his green eyes cold as he told me he wasn't ready, that he didn't want a kid, that he didn't want me if I kept the baby, his words cutting deeper than I'd thought possible, his rejection a wound that never fully healed. I'd moved in with Claire after he left, my sister's small house in Tacoma becoming my refuge, her spare room my sanctuary as I navigated pregnancy alone, my body changing, my heart breaking, my future uncertain. Noah was born on a rainy April morning, his tiny cries filling the hospital room, his green eyes staring up at me, his little hand wrapping around my finger, a moment that changed me forever, a moment that made me a mother, a moment that gave me a reason to keep going, even when I felt like I couldn't, even when I felt like I'd lost everything. Claire had been my rock, taking care of Noah when I needed to work, when I needed to rebuild my life, when I needed to pretend I was someone else, someone who didn't have a child, someone who could start over, someone who could be the woman Adam thought I was. I'd see Noah every other weekend, driving down to Tacoma with a bag of toys and books, my heart swelling as he ran to me, his little arms wrapping around my legs, his voice bright as he called me Mama. A word that filled me with love and guilt in equal measure. A word that reminded me of the life I was hiding, the life I was denying, the life I couldn't bring myself to share with Adam. I'd tell Adam I was visiting Claire, a half-truth that rolled off my tongue too easily, a lie that became part of my routine, a lie that kept my secret safe, a lie that kept my new life intact, a lie that would eventually destroy everything. Adam wanted kids someday, he'd told me early on, his hazel eyes lighting up as he talked about the family he envisioned. A little boy to play catch with in the backyard, a little girl to take to ballet lessons, a future filled with laughter and love, a future he wanted with me, a future he didn't know I'd already started without him. I can't wait to have a family with you, Lydia, he'd say, his hand on mine, his thumb tracing circles on my skin, his voice warm with hope, with love, with a dream I couldn't bring myself to shatter. A dream I wanted so badly to be part of. A dream I thought I could have if I just kept my secret a little longer, if I just waited for the right moment, if I just found the courage I never seemed to have. I'd smile, my heart pounding, my hands trembling, my breath shallow as I nodded, as I lied, as I buried the truth deeper. As I told myself I'd tell him after the wedding, after we were married, after it was too late for him to walk away, after I'd secured the life I wanted, the life I thought I deserved. Our life together was filled with small, perfect moments. Moments that made me believe I could have it all. Moments that made me forget the weight of my secret, if only for a little while. We'd cook dinner together most nights, bumping into each other in our tiny kitchen, the air filled with the scent of garlic and olive oil as we made pasta from scratch. The dough sticking to our fingers, our laughter echoing off the walls, the radio playing soft jazz in the background. A song we'd dance to in the middle of the kitchen, his arms around me, my head on his chest, his heartbeat steady against my ear, a rhythm that felt like home, a rhythm that felt like forever. We'd take walks along the waterfront on weekends, the Puget Sound shimmering in the distance, the air crisp with the scent of salt water, our hands intertwined, our steps in sync. His navy coat draped over my shoulders when the wind picked up, his warmth seeping into me, his love a shield against the world, against my past, against the truth I couldn't face. But the guilt was always there, a shadow I couldn't outrun, a whisper I couldn't silence, a weight I couldn't shake, no matter how hard I tried, no matter how much I wanted to. I'd lie awake at night, Adam asleep beside me, his steady breathing a contrast to the chaos in my mind, his arm draped over my waist, his warmth a comfort I didn't deserve, a comfort I couldn't fully accept, not with the secret I was keeping, not with the lie I was living. I'd think about Noah, about his green eyes and curly hair, about the way he'd laugh when I tickled him, the way he'd snuggle into me when I read him bedtime stories, the way he'd ask for me when I wasn't there. His little voice breaking my heart over the phone, a voice that reminded me of the life I was hiding, the life I was denying, the life I couldn't bring myself to share with Adam. I'd think about the day I'd have to tell him, the day I'd have to confess, the day I'd have to face the truth and risk losing everything. The man I loved, the life we'd built, the future we'd planned. I'd imagine his hazel eyes, so warm, so full of love, turning cold with betrayal, with hurt, with anger, his voice sharp as he asked me why. Why I'd lied, why I'd kept this from him, why I'd let him fall in love with a version of me that wasn't real, a version of me that didn't exist. A version of me I'd created to escape my past, to build a new life, to have a second chance. I'd imagine him walking away, his navy coat swinging as he left, his footsteps echoing in the hallway, a sound that would break me, a sound that would shatter the life I'd built, the life I'd dreamed of, the life I'd thought I could have if I just kept my secret a little longer, if I just waited for the right moment, if I just found the courage I never seemed to have. But I couldn't tell him, not yet, not when everything was so perfect, not when we were so close to the life I'd always wanted, not when the wedding was just weeks away. A day that was supposed to be the start of our forever, a day that was supposed to erase my past, a day that was supposed to make me whole. So I kept lying, kept hiding, kept pretending, telling myself it was for the best, telling myself I was protecting him, protecting us, protecting the life we were building, the life I wanted more than anything, the life I thought I could have if I just held on a little longer, if I just kept my secret a little deeper, if I just buried the truth a little further, until it was too late for him to walk away, until it was too late for me to lose him, until it was too late for everything to fall apart. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a whirlwind of excitement and dread. A tightrope walk between the life Lydia was building with Adam and the secret she'd buried. A secret that felt heavier with every decision, every detail, every moment that brought her closer to the day she'd promised to love him forever. A promise she was already breaking with her silence. Their apartment in Capitol Hill became wedding central, the small space overflowing with checklists, fabric swatches, and RSVPs, the air thick with the scent of lavender from the candles Adam had bought to set the mood. A gesture that made her smile even as her stomach twisted with guilt, with fear, with the weight of what she wasn't telling him. The gray linen sofa was piled with wedding magazines, their glossy pages dog-eared at articles like 10 Ways to Wow Your Guests, and Choosing the Perfect First Dance Song, pages that promised a perfect day, a perfect life, a perfect love. Promises she wasn't sure she could keep, not with the lie she was living, not with the truth she was hiding, not with the past she couldn't escape. Lydia threw herself into the preparations. Hopping the chaos would drown out the guilt. Hopping the details would distract her from the voice in her head that whispered warnings, that told her to tell Adam about Noah, that told her she was risking everything for a lie, for a life she might not even get to keep. She'd sit at the kitchen counter late at night, the chipped countertop covered with seating charts, her laptop open to a spreadsheet of vendors, florist, caterer, photographer, band, the screen glowing in the dim light, the cursor blinking like a heartbeat, a reminder of the time ticking down, of the moment she'd have to face the truth, of the moment she might lose everything. Adam would come up behind her, his hands on her shoulders, his touch warm, grounding, his lips brushing her temple as he murmured, "You're working too hard, babe. Let's go to bed." His voice soft, his hazel eyes filled with love, with concern, with a trust she didn't deserve, a trust that made her chest ache, that made her want to confess, that made her want to run. But she couldn't tell him. Not now, not when the wedding was so close, not when everything was falling into place. Not when she was so close to the life she'd always wanted, the life she'd dreamed of, the life she thought she could have if she just kept her secret a little longer, if she just held on a little tighter, if she just pretended a little harder. So she'd smile, her lips trembling, her heart pounding, her hands trembling as she closed the laptop, as she turned to him, as she buried the truth deeper. As she told herself she'd tell him after the wedding, after they were married, after it was too late for him to walk away, after she'd secured the life she wanted, the life she thought she deserved. "You're right," she'd say, her voice soft, her eyes avoiding his, her guilt a sharp pang in her chest. A pang she buried under the weight of her excitement, her desire, her longing for the life they were building, the life she wanted more than anything, the life she was willing to risk everything for, even her honesty, even her integrity, even the man she loved. The wedding was set for a small venue in the countryside just outside Seattle, a rustic barn surrounded by wildflowers and towering evergreens, a place that felt like a dream, a place that felt like the perfect start to their new life, a place that felt like a lie every time Lydia pictured it. They'd visited the venue months ago, a sunny afternoon in early spring, the air crisp with the scent of pine, the grass soft under their feet, the barn's red exterior glowing in the sunlight, its wooden beams strung with fairy lights that twinkled even in the daytime, a promise of magic, of romance, of a day they'd never forget. Adam had taken her hand, his fingers warm against hers, his hazel eyes bright with excitement as he'd said, "This is it, Lydia. This is where we'll start our forever." His voice trembling with emotion, his love a weight she couldn't bear, a weight she didn't deserve, a weight she carried with every step, every smile, every lie. She'd chosen a dress, a simple ivory gown with lace sleeves, the fabric soft against her skin, the train just long enough to feel elegant but not over the top, a dress that made her feel beautiful, that made her feel like a bride, that made her feel like the woman Adam thought she was, the woman she wanted to be, the woman she was pretending to be. She tried it on at a small boutique downtown, the mirrors reflecting her from every angle, the saleswoman pinning the hem, her sister Claire standing behind her, her eyes misty as she'd said, "You look perfect, Lyd." Her voice soft, her hand on Lydia's shoulder. A gesture that felt like support but also like a warning, a reminder of the secret they shared, a reminder of the truth Lydia couldn't face, a reminder of the child she was hiding, the child who deserved better. The child who deserved a mother who wasn't ashamed, who wasn't afraid, who wasn't living a lie. Claire knew about Noah, of course. She'd been there through everything, from the moment Lydia had found out she was pregnant, through the heartbreak of Ethan's rejection, through the late nights of colic and teething, through the decision to keep Noah a secret from Adam, a decision Claire had never agreed with, a decision she'd warned Lydia against, a decision that would eventually destroy everything. "You have to tell him, Lydia," Claire had said a month before the wedding, her voice sharp, her brown eyes filled with worry, her hands on her hips as they stood in Claire's kitchen in Tacoma, the air thick with the scent of the lasagna Claire was baking, Noah's laughter echoing from the living room where he played with his toy trucks. A sound that filled Lydia with love and guilt in equal measure. A sound that reminded her of what she was hiding, of what she was risking, of what she might lose. You can't start a marriage with a lie this big. What if he finds out later? What if he walks away? What about Noah? He deserves better than this, and so does Adam. Lydia had looked away, her heart pounding, her hands trembling, her breath shallow as she stared at the linoleum floor, its yellow tiles faded from years of use. A floor she'd paced countless times during her pregnancy. A floor that held the weight of her past, the weight of her secrets, the weight of her shame. "I can't, Claire," she'd said, her voice breaking, her eyes filling with tears, her guilt a sharp pang in her chest. a pang she couldn't bury, couldn't ignore, couldn't escape. I can't risk losing him. He's everything I've ever wanted, everything I've ever dreamed of. He loves me, Claire. He loves the version of me he knows, the version of me I've let him see. If I tell him about Noah, he might leave, he might not understand, he might not want me anymore. I can't take that chance, not now, not when we're so close, not when I'm finally getting the life I deserve. Claire had sighed, her shoulders slumping, her brown eyes softening with a mix of pity and frustration. Her hand reaching for Lydia's, her touch gentle but firm, a gesture that felt like love but also like a warning, a reminder of the truth Lydia couldn't face, a reminder of the child she was hiding, a reminder of the lie she was living. I get it, Lyd, she'd said, her voice softer now, her eyes searching Lydia's, her love a steady presence Lydia didn't deserve, a presence that made her chest ache, that made her want to confess, that made her want to run. I get that you're scared, that you love him, that you want this life with him. But secrets like this, they don't stay buried. They come out, and when they do, they hurt everyone. You're not just hiding Noah from Adam, you're hiding a part of yourself, a part of who you are, a part of what makes you you. And if Adam can't love that part of you, then maybe he's not the man you think he is. Maybe he's not the man you deserve. Lydia had pulled her hand away, her heart pounding, her hands trembling, her breath shallow as she turned to the sink, her fingers gripping the edge, the cold metal grounding her, steadying her, reminding her of the life she was trying to build, the life she was trying to protect, the life she was willing to lie for. I'll tell him after the wedding, she'd said, her voice steady now, her resolve firm, her heart racing with a mix of fear and determination, with a mix of guilt and hope, with a mix of love and shame. Once we're married, once we're settled, once he knows I'm all in, I'll tell him about Noah. He'll understand then, he'll have to understand, he'll see that I was just scared, that I just wanted to protect us, that I just wanted to give us a chance. He loves me, Claire. He'll forgive me. He'll accept Noah, he'll accept me. Claire had nodded, her lips pressed into a thin line, her brown eyes filled with doubt, her hands folded in her lap, her silence a judgment Lydia couldn't face. A judgment that followed her back to Seattle, that followed her through every wedding decision, that followed her into every moment with Adam. A moment that should have been filled with joy, but was tainted by her secret, by her guilt, by her fear. She'd chosen the flowers, white roses and lavender sprigs, their scent soft and calming, a scent that reminded her of the candles in their apartment, a scent that was supposed to calm her nerves, but only made her more aware of the storm inside her, the storm she couldn't escape, the storm that was coming closer with every passing day, with every passing hour, with every passing minute. She picked the cake, a 3-tiered vanilla sponge with raspberry filling, the frosting a soft ivory to match her dress, the topper a simple figurine of a bride and groom, their tiny hands clasped, a symbol of the life she was building, the life she was risking, the life she might lose. She finalized the guest list. 50 people, a small group of family and friends, including Claire, who'd promised to come without Noah, a promise that broke Lydia's heart, a promise that reminded her of the child she was hiding, the child she was denying, the child who deserved better, who deserved a mother who wasn't ashamed, who wasn't afraid, who wasn't living a lie. She'd written her vows, her hands trembling as she scribbled the words on a piece of notebook paper, the ink smudging where her tears had fallen, the words a promise she wasn't sure she could keep, a promise to love Adam, to honor him, to be honest with him, a promise she was already breaking, a promise she'd been breaking since the day they met. Every decision, every detail, every moment brought her closer to the wedding, closer to the life she wanted, closer to the moment she'd have to face the truth, the moment she might lose everything, the moment she'd been dreading since the day Adam proposed, since the day she said yes, since the day she chose to keep her secret, to keep her son, to keep her past hidden from the man she loved, the man she wanted to build a future with, the man she was lying to with every smile, every kiss, every promise. She'd look at Adam as they planned, his hazel eyes bright with excitement, his hands steady as he tied his tie for the rehearsal dinner, his voice warm as he talked about their honeymoon, a week in Hawaii, a beachfront villa with a view of the ocean, a trip he'd planned as a surprise, a trip he'd saved for months to afford, a trip that was supposed to be the start of their new life. A trip she might never take, not now, not after everything, not after the truth came out. She'd think about Noah, about his green eyes and curly hair, about the way he'd laugh when she pushed him on the swing at the park, the way he'd cling to her when she dropped him off at Claire's, the way he'd ask for her when she wasn't there, his little voice breaking her heart over the phone, a voice that reminded her of what she was hiding, of what she was risking, of what she might lose. She'd think about the life she was building with Adam, the life she dreamed of, the life she thought she could have if she just kept her secret a little longer, if she just held on a little tighter, if she just pretended a little harder. And she'd think about the life she was denying Noah, the life he deserved, the life she couldn't give him, not now, not when she was so close to the life she wanted, not when she was so close to the life she thought she deserved, not when she was so close to losing everything. The morning of the wedding dawned crisp and clear. A rare sunny day in Seattle, the sky a brilliant blue, the air filled with the scent of wildflowers and pine. A perfect day for a wedding, a perfect day for a new beginning, a perfect day for a lie to unravel, for a life to shatter, for a heart to break. Lydia woke early, her stomach in knots, her hands trembling as she slipped out of bed, careful not to wake Adam, who was sleeping at a friend's place the night before, a tradition they'd decided to keep. A tradition that gave her one last night to wrestle with her secret. One last night to convince herself she was doing the right thing. One last night to bury the truth deeper, to pretend a little longer, to hope for a miracle she didn't deserve. She stood in front of the mirror in their apartment. The white walls reflecting the sunlight, the gray linen sofa still piled with wedding magazines, the kitchen counter cluttered with empty coffee mugs and a half-eaten bagel, a reminder of the life they'd built, the life she was risking, the life she might lose. She slipped into her wedding dress, the ivory fabric soft against her skin, the lace sleeves delicate against her arms, the train pooling around her feet, a dress that made her feel beautiful, that made her feel like a bride, that made her feel like the woman Adam thought she was, the woman she wanted to be, the woman she was pretending to be. She styled her hair in loose waves, the strands falling over her shoulders, catching the sunlight as she moved, a cascade of dark brown that felt softer, silkier, more glamorous than it ever had in their small apartment. She applied her makeup with trembling hands, the mascara smudging slightly as her eyes welled with tears, tears she wiped away, tears she couldn't let fall, tears that carried the weight of her secret, the weight of her guilt, the weight of the life she was hiding, the life she was denying, the life she might lose. Claire arrived to help her get ready, her brown eyes filled with a mix of excitement and worry, her hands steady as she adjusted Lydia's veil. The tulle soft against her fingers, the fabric catching the light, a symbol of the life Lydia was stepping into, the life she was risking, the life she might not get to keep. "You look beautiful, Lyd," Claire said, her voice soft, her eyes searching Lydia's, her love a steady presence Lydia didn't deserve, a presence that made her chest ache, that made her want to confess, that made her want to run. "Are you sure about this? It's not too late to tell him, you know. You can still do the right thing, still be honest, still give him the chance to choose you, to choose Noah, to choose the life you could have together." Lydia looked away, her heart pounding, her hands trembling, her breath shallow as she stared at her reflection. The woman in the mirror a stranger, beautiful, radiant, a bride on her wedding day, a bride with a secret, a bride with a lie, a bride who was risking everything for a life she thought she deserved, a life she might not get to keep. "I can't, Claire," she said, her voice breaking, her eyes filling with tears, her guilt a sharp pang in her chest, a pang she couldn't bury, couldn't ignore, couldn't escape. "I can't risk losing him, not today, not now, not when we're so close. I'll tell him after, I promise. I'll tell him when we're settled, when we're married, when he knows I'm all in. He'll understand then, he'll have to understand, he'll see that I was just scared, that I just wanted to protect us, that I just wanted to give us a chance. He loves me, Claire. He'll forgive me. He'll accept Noah. He'll accept me." Claire sighed, her shoulders slumping, her brown eyes filled with doubt, her hands falling to her sides, her silence a judgment Lydia couldn't face. A judgment that followed her to the venue, that followed her down the aisle, that followed her into the moment that would change everything, that would shatter her life, that would break her heart. The barn was breathtaking, the wooden beams strung with fairy lights, the white roses and lavender sprigs filling the air with their soft scent, the chairs arranged in neat rows, the guests smiling as they took their seats, their voices a soft murmur, a symphony of joy and anticipation, a symphony that felt like a lie, a symphony that felt like a storm waiting to break. Lydia stood at the back of the aisle, her bouquet trembling in her hands, the white roses soft against her fingers, the lavender sprigs brushing her skin, their scent calming her nerves, their beauty a stark contrast to the chaos inside her, the chaos she couldn't escape, the chaos that was coming closer with every step, with every breath, with every moment. She looked down the aisle, the path lined with petals, the guests turning to watch her, their smiles warm, their eyes filled with love, with hope, with a belief in the life she was building, the life she was risking, the life she might lose. She saw Adam at the altar, his navy suit tailored to perfection, his hazel eyes bright with emotion, his smile wide as he watched her, his love a beacon she couldn't resist, a beacon she didn't deserve, a beacon that pulled her forward, that pulled her closer to the moment she'd been dreading, the moment she'd been hiding from, the moment that would change everything. She took a deep breath, her heart pounding, her hands trembling, her breath shallow as she started down the aisle, the music swelling around her. A soft piano melody they'd chosen together, a song that was supposed to mark the start of their forever, a song that felt like a lie, a song that felt like a goodbye. She walked slowly, her steps measured, her eyes locked on Adam's, his smile steadying her, his love grounding her, his trust breaking her, a trust she didn't deserve, a trust she was about to betray, a trust she was about to shatter. She reached the altar, her bouquet trembling in her hands, her heart racing with a mix of joy and dread, with a mix of love and fear, with a mix of hope and shame. She took Adam's hands, his fingers warm against hers, his hazel eyes filled with love, with trust, with a future she wanted so badly to be part of, a future she might not get to have, a future she was risking with every moment, with every lie, with every secret. The officiant began the ceremony, his voice warm, his words a promise of love, of commitment, of a life together, words that felt like a knife in Lydia's chest, words that reminded her of the vow she was breaking, the vow she'd already broken, the vow she couldn't keep, not with the secret she was hiding, not with the truth she was denying, not with the child she was keeping from the man she loved, the man she was promising to love, to honor, to be honest with, a promise she was already breaking. A promise she'd been breaking since the day they met. She looked at Adam, his hazel eyes locked on hers, his smile soft, his love a weight she couldn't bear, a weight she didn't deserve, a weight she carried with every breath, every heartbeat, every moment. The officiant's voice droned on, a steady rhythm of words about love and commitment, words that should have filled Lydia with joy but instead twisted her stomach into knots, each syllable a reminder of the lie she was living, the secret she was keeping, the truth she couldn't face. She stood at the altar, her hands in Adam's, his fingers warm and steady against hers, his hazel eyes locked on hers, his smile soft, his love a beacon she didn't deserve. A beacon that made her heart ache with longing, with guilt, with the weight of what she wasn't telling him. The barn was a vision of rustic beauty, the wooden beams overhead strung with fairy lights that twinkled like stars, the white roses and lavender sprigs filling the air with their soft scent, the guests seated in neat rows, their faces glowing with happiness, their murmurs a quiet hum of anticipation, a hum that felt like a storm brewing, a storm Lydia couldn't escape, a storm she'd created with every lie, every omission, every moment she'd chosen to keep her secret. She glanced at the crowd, her eyes scanning the familiar faces, Adam's parents, his mom dabbing her eyes with a tissue, her dad nodding approvingly. Her own mother, her smile tight with a mix of pride and worry, her hands clasped in her lap, her gaze flickering to Claire, who sat in the second row, her brown eyes filled with a quiet intensity, a silent warning Lydia couldn't ignore, a warning that made her stomach twist, made her heart race, made her want to run. Claire's presence was a comfort and a curse, a reminder of the sister who'd supported her through everything, but also a reminder of the secret they shared, the secret Claire had begged her to reveal, the secret that could unravel everything in an instant, that could shatter the life Lydia was building, the life she wanted so badly, the life she thought she deserved. Lydia's bouquet trembled in her hands, the white roses soft against her fingers, the lavender sprigs brushing her skin, there sent a faint comfort against the chaos inside her. A chaos that grew with every word the officiant spoke, with every moment that brought her closer to the vows. Closer to the moment she'd promised to love Adam forever. A promise she was already breaking. A promise she'd been breaking since the day they met. She looked at Adam, his navy suit tailored to perfection, the boutonniere. A single white rose with a sprig of lavender, pinned to his lapel, a match to her bouquet, a symbol of their unity, a symbol of the life they were building, a symbol of the lie she was living. His hazel eyes were bright with emotion, his smile steady, his love a weight she couldn't bear, a weight she didn't deserve. A weight that made her want to confess, to tell him everything, to risk it all for the chance at a real, honest love, a love she could believe in, a love she could trust. But she couldn't, not now, not here, not in front of everyone, not when they were so close, not when the life she'd dreamed of was within her grasp, not when she'd already come this far, already lied this much, already risked everything for the chance at a new beginning, a new life, a new love. So she smiled, her lips trembling, her heart pounding, her breath shallow as she squeezed his hands. As she tried to focus on the moment, as she tried to believe in the life they were building, the life she wanted so badly, the life she thought she could have if she just kept her secret a little longer, if she just held on a little tighter, if she just pretended a little harder. The officiant asked them to turn to each other, to prepare for their vows, a moment that should have been the highlight of the day. A moment that should have sealed their love, a moment that felt like a knife in Lydia's chest, a knife she'd sharpened with every lie, every omission, every moment she'd chosen to keep her secret. Adam went first, his voice steady, his hazel eyes locked on hers, his words a promise of love, of commitment, of a future together, words that made her heart soar and break in equal measure, words that reminded her of the man she loved, the man she was lying to, the man she was about to lose. "Lydia," he began, his voice trembling slightly, his hands tightening on hers, his love a beacon she couldn't resist, a beacon she didn't deserve, a beacon that pulled her closer to the moment she'd been dreading, the moment she'd been hiding from, the moment that would change everything. "From the moment I met you, I knew you were the one. You brought light into my life, a light I didn't even know I needed, a light I can't imagine living without. I promise to love you, to support you, to be there for you always. I promise to build a life with you, a family with you, a future with you. I promise to be your partner, your friend, your everything, for as long as I live." Tears stung her eyes, hot and bitter, spilling down her cheeks as she listened to his words, as she felt the weight of his love, the weight of her lie, the weight of the future she was risking, the future she might not get to have, the future she wanted so badly to be part of. She wiped them away, her hands trembling, her breath hitching, her heart breaking as she tried to find the words, tried to speak her vows, tried to promise him the same love, the same commitment, the same future, a promise she wasn't sure she could keep, a promise she was already breaking, a promise she'd been breaking since the day they met. She opened her mouth to speak, her voice trembling, her words caught in her throat, her guilt a sharp pang in her chest, a pang she couldn't bury, couldn't ignore, couldn't escape. But before Lydia could speak, before she could say the words that would seal her lie, that would bind her to Adam, that would break her heart, a voice cut through the silence. A voice that shattered the moment, that shattered her life, that shattered everything she'd been holding on to. It was Claire, her sister, standing up from her seat in the second row, her brown eyes wide with a mix of panic and determination, her hands clenched at her sides, her voice loud, too loud, a voice that carried over the soft piano melody, over the murmurs of the guests, over the beating of Lydia's heart. A voice that changed everything in an instant. "Wait," Claire called out, her voice trembling, her eyes darting between Lydia and Adam, her hands trembling as she took a step forward, her presence a storm Lydia couldn't stop, a storm she'd created, a storm that was about to destroy everything. The efficient paused, his eyebrows raised, his hands lowering the book he held, his expression a mix of confusion and concern, a mix that mirrored the faces of the guests. Their murmurs growing louder, their eyes wide with curiosity, with anticipation, with a sense of something terrible about to happen, something terrible Lydia couldn't stop, something terrible she'd brought upon herself. Lydia's heart stopped, her breath catching in her throat, her hands trembling in atoms, her bouquet slipping from her fingers, the white roses and lavender sprigs scattering on the wooden floor. A symbol of the life she was losing, the life she was destroying, the life she'd never have. She turned to Claire, her eyes wide with panic, her voice a whisper, a plea, a desperate attempt to stop the inevitable, to stop the truth, to stop the storm. "Claire, no," she said, her voice breaking, her tears falling, her heart racing with fear, with dread, with the realization that this was it. This was the moment she'd been dreading, the moment she'd been hiding from, the moment that would change everything. But Claire didn't stop, couldn't stop, her brown eyes filled with tears, her hands trembling as she took another step forward, her voice louder now, her words a confession Lydia couldn't escape. A confession that shattered the life she'd built, the life she'd dreamed of, the life she thought she deserved. "I'm sorry, Lydia, but I can't let you do this," Claire said, her voice breaking, her eyes locked on Adam's, her words a dagger in Lydia's heart, a dagger she'd sharpened with every lie, every omission, every moment she'd chosen to keep her secret. "Adam, there's something you need to know. Lydia has a son. His name is Noah, he's 4, and he lives with me in Tacoma. She's been hiding him from you, from everyone, because she was scared, because she didn't want to lose you, because she thought you wouldn't accept her if you knew the truth. But you deserve to know, Adam. You deserve the truth, and so does Noah." The barn fell silent, a deafening silence that pressed against Lydia's ears, a silence that drowned out the soft piano melody, that drowned out the murmurs of the guests, that drowned out the beating of her own heart, a silence that felt like the end of her life, the end of her love, the end of everything she'd been holding on to. She looked at Adam, her heart breaking, her hands trembling in his, her breath shallow as she waited for his reaction, as she waited for the storm, as she waited for the moment she'd lose everything. The moment she'd been dreading, the moment she'd been hiding from, the moment that would change everything. Adam's face changed in an instant, his hazel eyes darkening with shock, with betrayal, with hurt, his hands pulling away from hers, his touch cold, distant, a gesture that felt like a rejection, a gesture that broke her heart, a gesture that confirmed her worst fears, her worst nightmares, her worst regrets. "What?" he said, his voice low, his eyes searching hers, his expression a mix of confusion and pain, a mix that tore at her heart, that tore at her soul, that tore at everything she'd been holding on to. "A son? You have a son, Lydia. And you didn't tell me. You've been lying to me this whole time, about something this big, about something this important, about something that changes everything." She nodded, her tears falling, her hands trembling, her breath shallow as she tried to find the words, tried to explain, tried to make him understand, tried to make him stay, tried to make him love her still, despite the lie, despite the secret, despite the truth. "I'm sorry, Adam," she said, her voice breaking, her eyes pleading with his, her heart breaking with every word, with every breath, with every moment. "I wanted to tell you, I did, I swear. But I was scared, so scared that you'd leave, that you wouldn't want me, that you wouldn't want us. I thought I could tell you after we were married, after we were settled, after you knew I was all in. I thought you'd understand, I thought you'd forgive me, I thought you'd accept Noah, accept me, accept the life we could have together. I love you, Adam, I love you so much, and I didn't want to lose you. I didn't want to lose this." But Adam shook his head, his hazel eyes filling with tears, his hands clenched at his sides, his voice a whisper, a broken whisper that tore at her heart, that tore at her soul, that tore at everything she'd been holding on to. "You lied to me, Lydia," he said, his voice cracking, his eyes avoiding hers, his love a weight she couldn't bear, a weight she'd lost, a weight she'd never feel again. "You lied about something so big, something so fundamental, something that changes everything. I thought I knew you, thought I loved you, thought we were building a life together, a real life, an honest life. But this is too much. I can't do this, can't marry you, can't build a life with you, not when it's based on a lie, not when I don't even know who you are, not when I don't even know if I can trust you. He turned away, his navy suit swinging as he walked down the aisle, his steps heavy, his shoulders slumped, his love a memory she couldn't hold on to, a memory she'd lost, a memory she'd destroyed with every lie, every omission, every moment she'd chosen to keep her secret. The guests gasped, their murmurs growing louder, their eyes wide with shock, with pity, with judgment, a judgment that pressed against Lydia, that pressed against her heart, that pressed against the life she'd been building, the life she'd just lost, the life she'd never have. She stood at the altar, her wedding dress pooling around her, the lace sleeves soft against her arms, the train crumpled on the floor, a symbol of the life she'd dreamed of, the life she'd risked, the life she'd lost. Claire rushed to her side, her brown eyes filled with tears, her hands trembling as she reached for Lydia, her touch gentle but firm, a gesture that felt like love but also like regret, a reminder of the sister who tried to warn her, who tried to save her, who tried to stop her from making the biggest mistake of her life. "I'm sorry, Lyd," Claire said, her voice breaking, her eyes searching Lydia's, her love a steady presence Lydia didn't deserve, a presence that made her chest ache, that made her want to scream, that made her want to disappear. "I had to do it," had to tell him, had to give him the chance to know the truth, to choose you, to choose Noah, to choose the life you could have together. "I thought he'd understand, thought he'd stay, thought he'd love you enough to work through it. I didn't think he'd walk away, didn't think he'd leave you like this, didn't think it would end like this." But Lydia shook her head, her tears falling, her hands trembling, her breath shallow as she pulled away from Claire, as she turned to the guests, as she faced the wreckage of her life, the wreckage of her love, the wreckage of her future. "It's my fault," she said, her voice breaking, her eyes scanning the crowd, her heart breaking with every word, with every breath, with every moment. "I lied to him, lied to all of you, lied to myself. I thought I could have this life, thought I could have this love, thought I could have this future if I just kept my secret, if I just pretended, if I just buried the truth. But I was wrong, so wrong, and now I've lost everything. Adam, our life, our future, everything I've ever wanted, everything I've ever dreamed of, everything I thought I deserved." The guests stared at her, their eyes wide with shock, with pity, with judgment, a judgment that pressed against her, that pressed against her heart, that pressed against the life she'd been building, the life she'd just lost, the life she'd never have. She turned away, her wedding dress dragging on the wooden floor, the lace sleeves catching on the scattered petals, the train crumpling further, a symbol of the life she'd lost, the life she'd destroyed, the life she'd never have. She walked down the aisle alone, her steps heavy, her shoulders slumped, her tears falling onto the petals, a path that was supposed to lead to her future, a path that now led to nothing, a path that now led to the wreckage of her life, the wreckage of her love, the wreckage of her heart. Lydia drove back to Seattle in a daze, the wedding dress still clinging to her body, the ivory fabric stained with tears and dirt, the lace sleeves torn where they'd caught on the barn's wooden floor, the train crumpled in the passenger seat, a grotesque reminder of the life she'd lost, the life she'd destroyed, the life she'd never have. The car felt suffocating, the air thick with the scent of lavender from her bouquet, now scattered across the floorboards, the petals crushed under her heels, a symbol of the love she'd thrown away, the love she'd betrayed, the love that was gone forever. The Puget Sound glittered on her left, a silver ribbon under the late afternoon sun, but it offered no comfort, no peace, no hope, just a mirror to the emptiness inside her, the emptiness she'd created, the emptiness she couldn't escape. She pulled into the parking lot of her apartment, the gray building looming ahead, its white walls a stark contrast to the chaos in her mind, the chaos in her heart, the chaos she'd brought upon herself. The apartment was silent when she walked in, the gray linen sofa still piled with wedding magazines, the kitchen counter cluttered with empty coffee mugs and the half-eaten bagel from that morning. A morning that felt like a lifetime ago, a morning when she'd still believed in the life she was building, the life she was risking, the life she'd lost. She dropped the dress to the floor, the fabric pooling around her feet, a crumpled heap of dreams, of lies, of regret, and sank onto the sofa, her hands trembling, her breath shallow, her tears falling onto the cushions, a silent witness to her breakdown, a silent witness to her shame, a silent witness to her loss. Her phone buzzed on the coffee table, a text from Claire, asterisk, I'm so sorry, lid, I'm with Noah. Come see him when you're ready. Asterisk, a message that broke her heart, a reminder of the son she'd hidden, the son she'd denied, the son who deserved better, who deserved a mother who wasn't ashamed, who wasn't afraid, who wasn't living a lie. She didn't reply, couldn't reply, her hands shaking too much to type, her mind too numb to form words, her heart too broken to face the truth she'd avoided, the truth she'd buried, the truth that had cost her everything. She thought about Adam, about his hazel eyes filled with hurt, about his voice breaking as he walked away, about the love she'd lost, the love she'd betrayed, the love that was gone forever. She thought about the life they'd planned, the honeymoon in Hawaii, the family they'd dreamed of, the future that was now a memory she couldn't hold on to, a memory she'd destroyed with every lie, every omission, every moment she'd chosen to keep her secret. The guilt was unbearable, a weight that pressed against her chest, that made it hard to breathe, that made her want to disappear, to erase the day, to undo the lie, to go back to the moment she'd decided to hide Noah, to the moment she'd said yes to Adam, to the moment she'd believed she could have a new life without facing her past, without facing the truth, without facing the consequences. She stood, her legs shaky, her hands gripping the sofa for support, and walked to the kitchen, the chipped countertop cold under her fingers, the scent of stale coffee lingering in the air, a reminder of the mornings she'd shared with Adam, the mornings she'd taken for granted, the mornings she'd never have again. She opened the fridge, the shelves nearly empty, leftover takeout, a carton of milk, a jar of pickles, a stark contrast to the life she'd envisioned, the life she'd planned, the life she'd lost. She grabbed a glass, her hands trembling as she poured water, the liquid splashing onto the counter, a mess she didn't bother to clean, a mess that mirrored the chaos inside her, the chaos she couldn't escape, the chaos she'd created. She drank, the water cold against her throat, a temporary relief from the fire of her shame, the fire of her regret, the fire of her loss. She thought about Noah, about his green eyes and curly hair, about the way he'd laugh when she tickled him, the way he'd cling to her when she dropped him off at Claire's, the way he'd ask for her when she wasn't there, his little voice breaking her heart over the phone, a voice that reminded her of the love she'd denied him, the love she'd hidden, the love she owed him more than anything. She sank to the floor, her back against the cabinets, her wedding dress pooling around her, her tears falling onto the tiles, a silent confession, a silent plea. A silent promise to do better, to be the mother Noah deserved, even if it meant facing the wreckage of her life, the wreckage of her love, the wreckage of her heart. Hours passed, the apartment growing dark, the city lights glowing through the windows, a constellation of hope she couldn't feel, a hope she didn't deserve, a hope she'd lost with Adam, with her lies, with her choices. Her phone buzzed again, a call this time, Claire's name flashing on the screen, a lifeline she couldn't ignore, a lifeline she didn't deserve, a lifeline she needed more than anything. She answered, her voice breaking, her tears falling, her heart aching as she heard Noah's voice, his little mama. A sound that broke her, that healed her, that reminded her of the love she still had, the love she could still give, the love that mattered more than anything. "I'm coming, baby," she whispered, her voice trembling, her hands clutching the phone, her resolve hardening as she stood, as she wiped her tears, as she faced the truth she'd avoided, the truth she'd buried, the truth that had cost her everything but could still save her, could still save Noah, could still give her a reason to keep going, a reason to live, a reason to hope. The drive to Tacoma was a blur, the highway stretching ahead like a path to redemption, a path to forgiveness, a path to the son who needed her, the son who loved her, the son who deserved the truth she'd hidden, the truth she'd denied, the truth she was ready to face. Lydia arrived at Claire's house, the small yellow building glowing under the porch light, the air thick with the scent of rain and pine, a scent that felt like home, a home she'd neglected, a home she was ready to reclaim. She knocked, her hands trembling, her heart pounding, her breath shallow as the door opened, Claire standing there, her brown eyes filled with love, with concern, with a forgiveness Lydia didn't deserve. A forgiveness that made her chest ache, that made her want to cry, that made her want to start over. Noah ran to her, his curly hair bouncing, his green eyes bright, his little arms wrapping around her legs, a hug that broke her heart, that healed her heart, that reminded her of the love she'd almost lost, the love she still had, the love that mattered more than anything. "Mama," he cried, his voice filled with joy, with trust, with a love that didn't judge, a love that didn't blame, a love that gave her hope, a hope she could build on, a hope she could live for, a hope she could believe in. Claire stepped aside, her hand on Lydia's shoulder, her touch gentle but firm, a gesture that felt like support, like understanding, like a second chance. A second chance Lydia didn't deserve, a second chance she was determined to take, a second chance she was ready to earn. "He missed you," Claire said, her voice soft, her eyes searching Lydia's, her love a steady presence Lydia could lean on, a presence that made her want to be better, to do better, to be the mother Noah deserved, the sister Claire deserved, the woman she wanted to be. "We both did. Come inside. We'll figure this out together." Lydia nodded, her tears falling, her hands trembling as she scooped Noah into her arms, his weight a comfort, his warmth a lifeline, his love a reason to keep going, a reason to face the truth, a reason to rebuild. She stepped inside, the living room familiar, faded yellow curtains, a worn blue sofa, a pile of toy trucks on the carpet, a space that held her past, her pain, her love, a space she was ready to embrace, ready to make her own, ready to build a future in. She sat on the sofa, Noah on her lap, his head resting against her chest, his breathing soft, his trust absolute, a trust she'd almost broken, a trust she was determined to honor, a trust she'd earn back with every moment, every day, every choice. Over the next weeks, Lydia faced the consequences of her choices, the loss of Adam, a wound that wouldn't heal, a wound she'd inflicted, a wound she had to live with. She moved in with Claire and Noah, the small house becoming her refuge, her sanctuary, her home, a home where she could be honest, where she could be a mother, where she could be herself. She called Adam once, her voice trembling, her hands shaking, her heart breaking as she left a voicemail, asterisk. "Sorry, Adam. I was wrong, so wrong. I hope you can forgive me someday, even if we can't be together. I'll always love you." Asterisk, a message that went unanswered, a silence that hurt, a silence that taught her, a silence that pushed her forward, that pushed her to grow, that pushed her to change. She took Noah to the park every day, the swing set his favorite, his laughter filling the air, his green eyes bright with joy, his love a balm to her pain, a balm to her regret, a balm to her shame. She read him bedtime stories, his head on her shoulder, his little hand in hers, his trust a gift she'd never take for granted, a gift she'd protect, a gift she'd cherish. She talked to Claire, her sister's wisdom guiding her sister's love supporting her sister's forgiveness healing her. A healing that took time, a healing that took effort, a healing that gave her hope, a hope she could build on, a hope she could live for, a hope she could believe in. Lydia learned from her mistakes, the lie she'd lived, a lesson she'd never forget, a lesson that taught her honesty, that taught her courage, that taught her love. She promised herself to be true, to Noah, to herself, to the future she'd build, a future without secrets, without shame, without regret. She didn't know what lay ahead, didn't know if love would find her again, didn't know if she'd ever heal the wound of losing Adam, but she knew she had Noah, she knew she had Claire, she knew she had a chance to be better, a chance to do better, a chance to live a life that mattered, a life that was real, a life that was hers.